I must say, when I first came across my little 9.5 version of Napoleon and tried to persuade people to come home and look at it, if I could have foreseen what was to happen nearly 30 years later, I would never have believed it. This is the box, the two boxes with two reels in. It's the beginning of the whole thing. Now this I was seeing at a period when I'd seen a handful of silent films. And although I had seen many extremely good ones, what was never a feature of the period was extravagant camera movement. Now, although this was a reduced version, it was tinted and toned, and what was so extraordinary was the camera mobility. Gance not only put the camera very close to the people, he put it on the back of a horse for the chase across Corsica. He lashed it to a saddle, put a motor on it, and let the horse go. These shots are rapidly intercut in the chase sequence. He even put the camera in the water. He said, I wanted to see what one wave looked like to another wave. Good God, you know. You couldn't have had a better section of the film to hook you. One of the cameras that was used to make Napoleon is this debris, and incidentally it's this style, this type of camera which was used for the triptych, one on top of the other. As you see, it's extremely heavy. It's cranked by hand. And some of them were mounted on special cuirass, a sort of cuirass which fitted on the cameraman's chest. And the snowball fight was literally shot like this. You would, crank this way, crank that way, and when you have to hold them, it's quite surprising the results that he got. The camera was liberated because Gance wanted to make an actor of the audience. He wanted to pick the spectator up and hurl him into the action. From 1916 to 1928, there was absolutely no doubt he was the greatest director in Europe. The films were extremely melodramatic in some of them, but so crammed with ideas. And the one that always struck me, because by this time I was an editor myself, what struck me was his rapid cutting, which everybody has ascribed to Eisenstein. But Eisenstein hadn't started in pictures when Gance made La Rue, which is full of what we now call Russian cutting. And in 1929, Eisenstein, Budovkin, Alexandrov and Nikolai Eck came to Paris, and they went to see Gance, and they thanked him for teaching them the art of the cinema. Well, his rapid editing, best illustrated, I think, in that extraordinary scene when Napoleon is sitting in his room and the revolutionary terror is taking place outside and they're hanging a man. It's intercut with Danton giving a speech in a blacksmith's. Now, it's all symbolically done because you have a blacksmith actually at work while Danton is speaking, which in a sound film would be ludicrous, but in a silent film it's magic because they've wired up the hammer so that you get real sparks as he hits the metal, and it's intercut with close-ups of Danton shouting and laughing, the reaction of the characters who are all straight out of the French Revolution, intercut with Napoleon, intercut with what's going on outside the window. And it is a majestic piece of editing, and you couldn't possibly better it now. You couldn't get anything like it now. It's pure genius. Gance told me, and I still can't believe it, that he didn't have a moviola. He had no method of looking at the thing moving, that he would do it all like that. And he ruined his eyesight, particularly cutting the triptych sections, where he had to stick them all on the window and look and see how the framing action would match and so on. He was truly a Renaissance man. He is a writer of brilliance. He is a filmmaker who covers every aspect of motion picture production. Gance has such impact when you meet him. You know you're in the presence of an extraordinary figure. Obviously, when he was making films, it was even more so. And you can see pictures of him directing with a revolver. To say action, he always fired the revolver in the air. But to get more reactions, he used to let off a few cartridges through the scene too. And the whole thing had that sort of dynamite quality to it. It is amazing how hard that man must have worked. Months and months and months of directing at the top of his voice, firing revolvers, trying to cope with vast crowds. And he also played in the film. He has a substantial role as Saint-Just, which is a character that particularly fascinated him. And it just adds another level of amazement to his achievement.